Welcome back to PC-98 Paradise, the series where we take a close look at classic games for the NEC PC-98, the most popular Japanese PC series of the early 1990s. Madou Monogatari is a silly RPG series by Compile, featuring characters which also appeared in their puzzle game series, Puyo Puyo. Last year I made a video about Madou Monogatari 1, 2, 3, and if you want to learn more about the history of the series, you should probably watch that one. Today, though, I'm playing sort of a sequel to that game. Well, prequel, actually, which was released exclusively on the PC-98, Madou Monogatari A-R-S, or Madou Monogatari A-R-S as I affectionately call it, and just like Madou Monogatari 1, 2, 3, A-R-S is 3 adventures in one, only one of which was kind of ported to another system. While Madou Monogatari 1, 2, 3 has a full English patch completed last year, as of now A-R-S hasn't been translated to English. There is, however, a brand new Madou Monogatari game that has just recently had an official English release for modern consoles, titled Fia and the Wondrous Academy. Interestingly, they decided to use the Japanese title Madou Monogatari for this one, rather than Sorcery Saga, possibly due to the different publisher for the English release this time. I don't know much about the new game, to be honest, but apparently some of the original creators from Compile were involved. For the time being, I'm more interested in playing the old ones, so let's get to the main topic of this video, Madou Monogatari A-R-S for PC-98, which I'm going to play while enjoying these Puyo Puyo gummies. Wait a second, when did I buy these? Expires 2 months ago. Oh well, that's not too bad. It says if I'm lucky, there might be a carbuncle gummy inside. The game describes itself as a magical voice role-playing game. So again, like in the first one, the voices that play throughout the game were considered to be one of the main attractions. Inside, first of all, we have a beautiful full-color manual with some great illustrations. Then there's a separate starting manual in black and white, which mostly covers how to start the game and other technical aspects. Then we have something kinda weird. This calls itself the Owanimo spellbook. Owanimo is the name of the spell mentioned in the manual for Puyo Puyo, which makes Puyo Puyos disappear. Looks kind of foreboding, but let's see what's inside. Okay, so I knew that was gonna happen since I was the one who set it up before opening the case. It's one of those things with a rubber band that you twist up so that it moves and makes noise when you open the envelope. Compile seems to have enjoyed scaring the crap out of their customers since they included the exact same gag with the MSX version of Galvelius. There the envelope says The Curse of Galvelius instead of Owanimo spellbook. Anyway, let's look at the floppy disks. Just like in Madou Monogatari 1, 2, 3, you have 2 discs for each of the 3 episodes. But A-R-S also has a demo disc, which contains the game's main opening sequence. Another really cool thing about A-R-S is that this time they added hard drive support. So let's boot the PC-98 into DOS, insert the demo disk, and then run the installer file named madouinst.com. It's a pretty basic hard drive install program where you first specify the floppy drive you'll use for the installation and the hard drive where you want to install. The installer then creates a new directory and has you insert each of the disks one by one. Once it's finished, all we have to do is navigate to the newly created ARS folder on the hard drive and find madouars.bat. So first we get that opening sequence. And another cool thing I notice is that unlike in the first one, the music plays perfectly from the get-go on my PC-98. So no need to use ER cache to fix it. Nice! The opening sequence introduces the main characters of the game, and while Arle is spelled the usual way, the spellings for Rulu and Shezo differ from the standard ones. That's weird because they're spelled right on the back of the case. But of course we can't forget Carbuncle. And in the final shot, I just love the way the character's eyes follow Carbuncle across the screen. So for the first episode of the game, we take the role of Arle in her very first adventure. Here she's even younger than she was in Madou Monogatari 1, at the age of only 4. She's bringing medicine to her grandmother who lives on the other side of the forest, and this time she's making the trip on her own for the very first time. So, a Little Red Riding Hood story, basically. Just then, Carbuncle jumps out of the forest to do a little dance. I guess the ending of Madou Monogatari 2 wasn't where Arle met Carbuncle for the very first time after all. I wonder if Carbuncle remembered Arle then. After he's done dancing, Carbuncle jumps back into the bushes, and Arle chases after him, only to trip and fall and quickly lose sight of him. She then realizes that she's lost. Clearly, this is all Carbuncle's fault. Here we get the title screen, which appears at the beginning of every episode, and this time there is sort of a main theme melody for A-R-S. So we have to navigate Arle through the forest. The gameplay is exactly the same as Madou Monogatari 1-2-3. It's a straightforward first-person dungeon crawler, where you'll encounter enemies and have to use spells to defeat them. Rather than the more mature and sometimes grotesque enemies in the first one, throughout A-R-S, the enemies tend to stick to the more cute style that this and the Puyo Puyo series are known for. One of the most entertaining parts of the game is the voices from both Arle and the enemies as you do battle.
Yahoo, yahoo.
And unlike the first game, which only used the beep channel for the voices, here you can choose PSG instead. This gives the voices a bit less background noise. And also makes it so we can hear them through the main sound output on the back of the system, instead of having to use the headphone jack on the front, like I did in the previous video. The music sounds very similar to the first game. Looking back on that one, I gotta say there were a few real bangers in 1-2-3. Maybe there's nothing quite so memorable in A-R-S, but the music is all as nice as you would expect from a compile game. Saving the game is also much easier here, thanks to the hard drive support. In the first game, you had to change disks every time you saved or loaded, but here saving and loading is almost instantaneous, which is perfect since like in most Madou Monogatari games, you'll start off very weak and get killed and taken back to the beginning a lot. Now I can easily save as frequently as I want. I was shocked though, absolutely shocked, that this time they added gamepad support, and it works exactly the way it should. Hard drive support, PSG voices, fully working FM sound on newer PC-98s, and even gamepad support? Wow, they fixed everything. I would ask for stereo soundboard 86 support too, but maybe that would be inviting bad karma or something. Anyway, very satisfied here. One thing I didn't bother to mention in the first video, which some commenters were wondering about, is this crystal in the middle of the screen. As you can probably guess, this shows which direction you're facing, and the reason why it isn't present in some of my footage is because first you have to find it in each episode. So anyway, in Madou Monogatari A here, Arle finds a fairy trapped in a box, and saves her. But then Arle is attacked by the owl bear who was keeping the fairy as a pet, and we fight our first boss. Arle defeats the owl bear, it runs away, and the fairy promises to repay Arle somehow. But during the battle, Arle has unfortunately spilled her grandmother's medicine. She finds a medicine maker in the forest, but he asks her to find a silver apple, cold cactus, and a burnable rose in order to make the medicine. Finding these will be the main goal of this episode. Then Arle meets another fairy named Rin, who thanks Arle for saving the other fairy earlier. Rin will come along with Arle and show her secret passages in the forest. To find them, you just have to be facing the right direction in the right spot on the map. So like in all Madou Monogatari games, one of the main things you need to do is look at the map and see which areas you haven't found the entrance to yet, and think, how can I get there?
Alright, I'm almost there. Oh!
Another placemat, sir?
Please.
Here you really just have to look at the walls along the perimeter until Rin shows you the secret passage through. The fairies Arle will find throughout the forest will teach her new spells, and instead of Arle's famous two main spells, Fire and Ice Storm, here she starts with spells named and, which get upgraded eventually to and by the fairies. So if you ever wondered where Arle learned Fire and Ice Storm, it was from fairies in a forest. It's canon. One thing that came close to ruining this entire episode for me is the poison status. Just like in 1, 2, 3, the music changes whenever you're low on HP, Madou power, or have a status ailment. So once an enemy poisons you, you're going to have to listen to a pretty annoying and repetitive tune until you cure it, and even get stopped every few steps for the game to let you know you're losing HP. I had already gone and saved my game like an idiot, so there was no loading my way out of this. But okay, no big deal, right? Just have to find a shop and buy the antidote. Wrong. None of the shops in this entire episode sell the antidote, and you can't pick it up anywhere. You can buy it at the shops in the other 2 episodes, so I wonder if maybe including enemies in this one who can poison you was just an oversight. I managed to stay alive by healing, but I never got to hear the BGM for the last section of this episode thanks to that stupid poison BGM. But despite all that, in A-R-S, I overall had a great time exploring the maps in each of the episodes and figuring out what I needed to do on my own. Until I didn't. Each of them has at least one part that gets pretty ridiculous, and I had to resort to walkthroughs once I was stumped. The first episode isn't too bad, but the way you find the cold cactus is pretty cruel. You have 10 floors to get through, and the cold cactus is on the very last one. There are 5 fakes and only 1 real one, and you can only carry 1 at a time. The only way to tell the difference is to bring it all the way back to the medicine maker on the first floor, where he'll tell you whether you have the real one or not. It's a long journey. You have only a couple of tools to make this easier. Arle learns a spell called Illusion, which will cause an illusion of a dragon to manifest behind her. This scares off all the easy battle encounters until the spell wears off. The other thing is the teleportation item called the Dompa Oompa. To use it, you first set the Dompa in the spot you want to come back to later, and then you just use the Oompa remaining in your inventory to instantly teleport back to the spot where you set the Dompa. Arle then collects the Dompa, and the item becomes the Dompa Oompa again. You do have to be careful though when you use it, because apparently it can cause you to miss necessary flags and conversations when you bypass areas you were supposed to pass through. Man, this series is kind of buggy, isn't it? But anyway, here you can set the Dompa on the final floor so that you can easily return after traveling all the way back to the Medicine Man. Unfortunately, the Dompa Oompa is only one way, so you'll have to make the trip back to the first floor on foot every time. Arle eventually finds all the ingredients and gets the medicine. Then the first fairy she saved at the beginning gives her a crown and tells her she can use it at the stone on the final floor in order to exit the forest. We then have to fight that owl bear one last time, and boy is it hard. I would say this is actually the toughest battle in all of A-R-S. But if you can manage to do it, Arle can finally get out of the forest and the fairies say goodbye. So before showing the ending here, let's put a spoiler warning for the entire remainder of A-R-S. Arle pops out of the bushes and happens to be right in front of her grandmother's house, where she is immediately found. So, no real surprises here. I just felt it wouldn't be right to show the ending without a spoiler warning. We get the credits, just like in all the Madou Monogatari episodes. Well, in case you haven't figured it out already, in the remaining 2 episodes you'll be playing as Rulu and Shezo instead of Arle. The A, R, and S in the title are the initials of the 3 characters. Here's the character select after the opening sequence, which I skipped over last time. Let's move on to Rulu's story. Rulu, to refresh your memory, was the main antagonist of Madou Monogatari 3, and is an adult woman who wants to marry Satan, the end boss of the Puyo Puyo games. Here we take control of a younger Rulu who finds herself waking up in an unfamiliar room, with no memory of the previous night, despite apparently not having had much to drink. She is greeted by the butler of the castle, but she freaks out and gives him shaken butler syndrome, before then feeling kind of sorry about it. But she sets off to find her way out. Rulu has techniques instead of spells. There's no difference between the techniques and spells gameplay-wise, but I guess the naming convention is worth mentioning. The Rulu episode is a lot more difficult and complicated than Arle's. There are these beds all over the place that for some reason transform Rulu into a child, and then back to an adult if you use them again. Being a child allows you to crawl through holes in the walls, and also to ride typhoons that take you to new areas. There doesn't seem to be any advantage to being an adult. Speaking of the typhoons you can ride, in order to enable them you have to use this sort of season switching device, which at first appears to do nothing. The typhoons only occur when you have it set to fall, so you'd have to know that fall is usually considered to be the biggest typhoon season in Japan. The other part where you have to use the season switch is for this part where you need to plant a seed in spring to grow a beanstalk. I wondered then if you need to go and advance the seasons manually to make it grow, but no, you just need to fight 5 battles and then come back. See how ambiguous this can be? The game thinks it's being clever, but it's really just being ambiguous. Maybe a little more clever are the holes where you need to use the Dompa Oompa in order to reach new areas below. You drop the Dompa down the hole and then use the Oompa to warp down there. That's some Portal kind of stuff there. So anyway, Rulu learns that she is in a castle owned by someone who they call the Count. And she hears a rumor that the Count has recently obtained a jewel which is alive and looks like a cute little animal. And sure enough, Rulu eventually finds Carbuncle, who you can equip to help Rulu fight. At the end of the episode, Rulu confronts the Count, but unfortunately he's really strong and it's an unwinnable battle. Rulu is saved though by her knight in shining armor, who she meets here for the first time. Who is it?
Would it be, oh, I don't know, Satan?
Satan is angry at the Count for kidnapping Carbuncle and has come to get him back. With Satan's help, Rulu is now easily able to defeat the Count. In the ending, we'll see Satan reuniting with his beloved Carbuncle, and at first I was unable to tell from Carbuncle's expression whether he's happy to see him again or not. But I guess he is. Carbuncle loves all the humans he's with, and he even tells Satan all about how Rulu saved him. Apparently Satan can understand Carbuncle talk. All the while, by the way, the Count is being held down by Rulu's foot. Anyway, Satan, being a true gentleman, thanks Rulu for saving Carbuncle and offers to take her home. As he spreads his wings though, he disappears in a flash of light, and that's it. I don't know what it means, but what I do know is that for some reason the BGM for this ending didn't play on my PC-98. It's probably due to my particular setup, but the music did play when I booted the game directly from the floppy disks instead. So last, let's do Shizo's episode. Young Shizo is on a school trip, and his class is touring a dungeon where their tour guide explains a legendary hero once defeated and sealed away an evil wizard. While his class follows the tour guide, Shizo is distracted by a mirror that seems to be calling to him. He then gets sucked into the dungeon that we'll have to navigate in this episode. One weird glitch that occurred for me here is that for some reason I just stopped encountering enemies completely after fighting just a few battles. I suppose this would have made it really easy to get to the end of the dungeon, but the end boss would have been unbeatable without gaining any experience first. The only way I was able to fix this is by just restarting Shizo's episode from the beginning, and I didn't encounter the glitch again. Shizo is a magic user and has most of the same spells as Arle. His scenario is a little less confusing than Rulu's, but there is still one fairly cryptic part where you meet this monkey, who is rumored to like rare items. You have to pick up a persimmon fruit, which one of the enemies randomly drops. But you can't just give the fruit to the monkey, you have to first use it, which will then leave behind a persimmon seed in your inventory. That's what the monkey wants, and he'll give you a required key in return. By the way, there are some English-speaking enemies in this game who have a real potty mouth. And some of you are probably thinking, wow, that's funny how it almost sounds like they're really saying that. But in fact, in this case, it is what the characters are supposed to be saying. You're just going to have to trust me on this one. Okay, but on the floor where Shizo encounters this succubus character, there's a very confusing maze of levers you have to figure out while being constantly attacked by a pretty brutal enemy. Using a walkthrough really helped since I didn't have the patience for this part. Late in the dungeon, there's an event where Shizo can summon a demon and get a pretty big upgrade to his stats, but it isn't required. One of the 3 required items to do this is a monkey's paw, which you need to go all the way back to the monkey in order to obtain.
It's just what he wants us to do. It's to go back downstairs through his funhouse so we get all tore up.
So I decided just to skip this, and it really wasn't difficult to finish the episode without it. On the final floor, there's a locked door to the boss room, and for some reason I didn't immediately notice the button near the door which opens it. Turns out it's literally a doorbell. And the end boss welcomes Shizo in. It's the spirit of an evil wizard named Rune Lord, who was imprisoned by the legendary hero long ago. He has been waiting for Shizo since he can see the future and knows that Shizo will be the one to inherit his power. During the fight, Rune Lord is constantly taunting Shizo about his destiny, but Shizo is not interested whatsoever. He just wants out of here. I actually feel kind of sorry for Shizo.
You feel sorry for me?
Yes.
Some commenters were wondering whether that part where Shizo gets decapitated in Madou Monogatari 2 is his canon death, and I don't know, it might be. But it's Madou Monogatari. Even Compile themselves never took the series seriously enough to maintain one consistent canon. Anyway, young Shizo defeats Rune Lord, but his spirit lives on within Shizo's body. Shizo finds the dungeon exit and comes out of the mirror. He lets out an evil laugh and seems excited about how he's going to be a bad guy now. But for the comedic ending, his teacher finds him and he seems powerless to stop her from dragging him away by the ear. The credits roll, and the ending music for this one is actually pretty depressing sounding. Poor Shizo. The credits include a surprising number of names which didn't appear in 1, 2, 3, but these are all still Compile regulars from the early 90s who worked on the Puyo Puyo and Alesta series. The voice cast, again, appears to include a bunch of Compile staff members, like President Mu Nitani. No famous voice actors seem to be listed here. So that's Madou Monogatari A-R-S, but there's actually one last Madou Monogatari game for PC-98 I haven't covered yet. So as a quick bonus game in this video, let's also take a look at Madou Monogatari Michikusa Ibun, or Strange Tales from the Road. This one was included on DiskStation Volume 3 for PC-98. DiskStation, as I mentioned briefly in the old video, was a really cool series of sort of digital magazines released by Compile over the years for the MSX, PC-98, and finally Windows. Each volume included game demos and mini-games from mostly Compile, but sometimes other companies. As you can see, this one is literally a magazine which includes 3 floppy disks. There's some other cool stuff on the other 2 disks, but the Madou Monogatari game is on disc 1. To play it, we first have to boot the disc. We're taken to a title screen and then a menu. All that's on this disc is the game and some text stuff to read, so we select the Madou Monogatari game and it takes us to an installer. For the installation, we have to provide a blank floppy disk. There are ways I could probably get this to run from the hard drive, but let's just do what it says. It formats the blank disk and installs the game. Then we just have to boot the disk. Disappointingly, the music is all reused from A-R-S, as is pretty much everything in this game. The short opening shows Arle and Carbuncle enjoying a beautiful day, and quickly deciding that the best way to spend a day like this is by exploring a dungeon. So they just gave up on writing a story for this one, I guess. The title screen appears along with the A-R-S theme again. Here we take the role of Arle sometime after Madou Monogatari 3. Arle and Carbuncle look very similar to the way they looked in 3, but with Arle slightly redrawn to look more similar to the way she looks in Puyo Puyo. During the battles, she's displayed instead as a super deformed version. So this game seems to me like a declaration that they're done with the more mature style they experimented with in 1, 2, 3 for PC-98. And from now on, Madou Monogatari is going to be a cute series. Since it's really a no-frills game, it's not too surprising that they removed the gamepad support, and I'm back to using the keyboard emulator. Even all of Arle's voices are the same as in Madou Monogatari A, where she was supposed to be 4. The enemies and their voices are also from A-R-S, but surprisingly later I think there are actually a couple of new enemies with new voices. The game is completely self-contained on one floppy, which holds even your game saves, so in a way it's actually kind of impressive. And at least there's one advantage to the music all being reused. I finally got to hear that music that I missed out on in Madou Monogatari A because of the poison. I also can't complain much about a game included in a set for only 1,980 yen. The dungeon has only 6 floors, but is interesting enough. The gimmick this time is a hole in the floor that connects all the floors together, and to travel upward through it you need both a snake in a box and a snake charmer's flute so you can ride up through the floors on the snake's head. And to travel downward you use an umbrella. I'm not exactly sure how you decide which floor to get off on, but I managed to get everywhere I needed to go anyway. The end of the game has a locked chest, and you'll need to find a key mold, some metal, and use this crucible to cast yourself a key. Throughout the dungeon there are several bookshelves, some of which have text you can read related to the lore of the Puyo Puyo series, and in that locked chest is the forbidden spellbook, which you use to watch the ending. The book contains the spell of Owanimo, so now this video has come full circle, back to that gag spellbook with the rubber band thingy in it. The book tells Arle to line up 4 monsters of the same color in order to release their power. The goddess of time will open the gate and send the monsters to another world. Carbuncle and Arle are confused. They'd never heard of such a monster which comes in different colors, and determine that this spell is of no use to them. But the narrator cuts in and explains that precisely as Arle was finding this spellbook, just such a monster was about to be born from the world of darkness, the Puyo Puyos, now in 5 different colors. To be continued, Puyo Puyo. And again, only one of the 4 adventures I covered today was ever ported to another system. It's hardly a port though, but practically an entirely different game. In this one, you also play as Arle at 4 on her way through the forest to her grandmother's house for the first time on her own. But this time she meets Satan, who wants to build an amusement park there. Arle's mission is to save the forest. The music, dungeon maps, and characters are all different. About all it has in common with A on PC-98 is that it takes place in a forest with Arle as a 4-year-old. And, like all the Game Gear entries in the series, there is an English patch available. In today's video, we got to see the origin stories for 3 characters, and even one story that leads into Puyo Puyo. In general, A-R-S is a little more cryptic and difficult to figure out than 1, 2, 3, but I did really like some of the quality of life improvements they made. Overall, I'd say that if you enjoyed 1, 2, 3, then you'll probably like A-R-S. But to avoid frustration, I'd plan on keeping a walkthrough handy. I don't know about English walkthroughs, but there are definitely at least a couple in Japanese. So that's all for Madou Monogatari on PC-98. Let's say goodbye to Arle, Carbuncle, and the others. At least until the next time this channel should happen to cross paths with them. Thanks for watching this episode of PC-98 Paradise. This one wasn't a request, but just a video I felt like doing. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to all of my patrons on screen for making this possible, and thanks so much to you for watching and subscribing. See you next time.